Hey, folks, it's Nate. It's time I got back to the drawing board. Tonight, I wanted to talk a little bit about branding. And I know I've talked about that before, mostly, though, as an idea of individual branding. Who you are, what your art style is, what your comics are about, that kind of a thing. But I was watching an interesting video by Giguk from the Anime Zone today, and he was talking a little bit about anime as a brand, and there was some things he talked about in there that I thought were insightful and useful to think about. As indie comics tries to set up as a kind of a movement, whether you're going Team Comics or Comics Gate or whatever, um, just things to think about. And I'm going to kind of recap what Giguk talked about in his video. Of course, the whole thing is linked in the description below if you want to watch that. But I'm going to hit some of the highlights as I saw them. And mostly what Giguk was talking about was the change in perception of what anime is. And, back in the day, anime was a animated TV show produced in Japan by Japanese people and predominantly for a Japanese audience, um, which is what really set apart things like um, Dragon Ball Z or Cowboy Bebop, or if you want to go more old school, things like Trigun or Akira, from movies like the Batman Beyond film, whose name escapes me, or Teen Titans more recently, to cite the same examples Gigek used. And one of those, on the one hand, you have shows or movies designed for Japanese audiences with Japanese character designs and cultural considerations and the whole 9 yards, and a very Japanese way of storytelling, as opposed to the Western character design sensibility, Western storytelling sensibilities, Western cultural touchstones. So you have two very different products when you boil it all down, and eventually, many of the storytelling sensibilities, many of the character design sensibilities of anime would slowly kind of make their way into Western animation, and likewise with manga and Western illustration. Manga being, if you didn't know, the Japanese term for comics. Um, so there's been a lot of cultural shift on that front over the last several years, and you can see it very strongly in TV shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender, or original animated projects like Dragon Prince or Ruby, and of course the Netflix Castlevania series looks almost like it could have been made entirely by a Japanese animation studio, but it's an entirely Western production. So those sensibilities, the storytelling sensibilities, the character design sensibilities, the character tropes, character motivations, these have become much more mainstream in the West, and um, some people like that, some people haven't, but you can't get around the fact that that is the way it is. Um, and so anime is almost like its own branding of animated television or animated film now, rather than a distinct cultural import from one nation uh, in the Pacific Ocean. And you can kind of identify some of those cultural touchstones, like the one everybody thinks of when they think of anime is Big Eyes. Um, there are others like the very over the top costume designs, the bright multicolored hair in weird spiky setups, huge oversized weapons. These are the stuff that immediately springs to mind a lot of the time when you mention anime. There are other things, of course. The slice of life genre is very popular. in Japan, and there have been a lot of attempts to adapt it into the West, most of which don't really seem to find the same success as Japanese series. I'm not sure why that is. I don't enjoy most Japanese slice of life stuff, so I really can't comment on that. Getting off track. The point is, anime is very much a branding thing now, and of course, if you watch Gigek's video, he goes a little more in depth into that. Um, the point is, it's very distinct, and you can point to it easily as to this is what it is. And as this attempt to go independent matures, I think we really have to think about you know what is on brand for this. I know that a huge part of the current brand is customer service. It's treating your customers respectfully, valuing their time and their money and their investment in your characters and storylines. That seems to me like a very good place to start a brand. McDonald's is their branding is not their food. It's the smile. Service with a smile leaves you smiling, makes you happy you came. I haven't been to a McDonald's in like 12 years, so I can't really say, whether that's true or not, but certainly how they brand themselves. So there's that. So you could go for customer service. Is that going to be, the indie comics creator, the Comicsgate creator? Is that going to be what they try and brand themselves as? Is it going to be, social media engagement? Ethan Van Sciver and Doug TenNapel and more people are building these live streams where they try and get a ton of community engagement there. That's another possibility. The comic artist as social media personality is another kind of branding. There are all these Comicsgate Live spinoffs. You have the Kids Table. You have Son of Comicsgate Live. You have it slips my mind. I know Edwin Boyette and John Malin both do these kind of Comicsgate Presents is another one. I forget who hosts it. So that could be another branding thing. That highly interactive live streaming, highly social media engagement kind of comics. Is that going to be part of indie comics? Of course, Peter Simeti of Alterna Comics also has a live stream, so that seems to be a big part of it. Indie comics can go whole hog on that. There are very, very few mainstream creators who do a whole lot of that. I know Jim Lee Twitch streams and he re-uploads those on YouTube. But he's one guy. I don't know how many other mainstream creators do that. What is going to be the branding that really sets indie comics apart? And I don't have any strong answers, but I think it's something definitely worth thinking about, worth talking over. And if there was one thing I would really put forward as important to the branding, it would probably be creator owned. Everybody from EVS on down is working on their own projects. They're not working on licensed. Well, okay, Mike Miller is currently pitching his Meg comic, but he already had that made. His contract fell through, so that's a bit of an exception there. Maybe not the best example. But I think creator owned, one of the things that makes manga very successful is that, in my opinion, is that it has a singular creative vision. Almost all manga is creator owned. There is licensed franchises, that certainly happens, but it's not nearly so common as creator owned stuff. and generally licensed products are like spin-offs of some other creator-owned thing. Not all the time, of course, but yeah, the creator-owned aspect of things, a chance to say, these are the characters, and they're going to be consistent. They're going to be written by the same guy, who is dedicated to showing you their growth over time, and show you how the characters you love stay the characters you love, but also become more than they were when you first met them. That kind of promise is not a promise that the mainstream can make. It's kind of a promise that I think it was the original promise of Image. I don't know how close they are to that still. I guess it would depend somewhat on the creators. But yeah, creator owned, I think, should be at the heart of the indie comics brand, along with high touch, very, very customer oriented media presence and things like that. So, like I said, I don't have a solid answer to the question. What is the brand of any indie comics? What should it be, and how should we approach it? But I think probably customer service, high touch, as you might call it in the customer service industry, high touch customer service, and being creator owned are two core elements of it. I would think that indie comics should really work to hold on to as they go forward, as they try and build the notion of what they are and what they hope to bring to the world creatively and in terms of business policy. So, yeah, that's what I have for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. There's a like button and a subscribe button down below. Use them as you see fit, and I'll talk to you later.